The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
With us now in studio from MTSU, we have Dr. Mary Evins, and she is a research professor of history in the MTSU Honors College. How are you this morning?
I'm very fine, thank you. Top of the morning to you.
That's right, it's St. Patrick's Day.
It's St. Patrick's Day.
So what got you involved in this area? Because you are involved in a lot of stuff at MTSU, but what got you focused on everything that you do?
I'll talk about specifically the program that's coming up this week, which is why I'm here being able to share with the folks in Murfreesboro and Rutherford County and around about. I teach U.S. history, and I teach specifically women's history. I am also the director of MTSU's American Democracy Project, which is about our student voting. So all of those actually come together this month during National Women's History Month. This Wednesday at MTSU, at the University Honors College at 2:30 in the afternoon, we are having a sit-down and discussion with a woman who is a documentary film producer, and her name is Christy Carpenter. And the reason why we brought Christy Carpenter to our campus this week, and we invite all of you to come and participate with us, is because she is the daughter of just an incredible role model woman in the middle part of the 20th century whose name was Mrs. Liz Carpenter. I don't know if that's a name that rings a bell with any of you, but you should have heard of her at some point along the time, because she was perhaps her most nationally visible role at one period of time is that she was the press secretary for First Lady Bird Johnson during the Lyndon Baines Johnson presidential administration. And Mrs. Liz Carpenter came to that position because she was a Texan, as were the Johnsons, and she was a journalist, and she had been a journalist in Washington, D.C. for a good long time. She had worked with previously Senator Lyndon Johnson and all of the Texas delegation, getting the information about what was going on in Washington back home to her home state of Texas about congressional and senatorial and presidential activities during the 1950s and the early part of the 1960s. She was a journalism major at the University of Texas in Austin, right before World War II and during World War II. And she graduated from UT Austin during the war and made her way to Washington, D.C., which was a hotbed for men journalists. And in those days, to be a woman journalist, you would probably get assigned to the society pages. But she had a heart and a mind and a fervor for politics, and she was quite a powerhouse. She was comic, she was hysterical, she was forceful, she was interesting, and she soon became well known as a young woman journalist to the Texas congressional delegation in D.C., and they knew that through her writing and her voice that they could get their message back to their constituency back home in Texas. So why are we here in Tennessee interested in this person? Well, let me tell you, it's a great Tennessee story. My granddaddy was a judge in rural Middle Tennessee, and he told me in his lifetime, in the early part of the 20th century, they used to write GTT, which stood for Gone to Texas, in the law books when someone would not show up for their sentencing. And I have yet to see these law books. If anybody knows about them with GTT written in them, I sure would like you to get in touch with me at the Department of History at MTSU and let me know. But everybody knows about the founder of Nashville, who was General James Robertson. And Christy Carpenter and her mother, Mrs. Liz Carpenter, are descendants of that esteemed early Tennessee founding family, the Robertsons. And some of them, of course, stayed here and settled here and lived forever. But her particular family stayed for a couple of generations and then moved on to Texas and became one of the first families of Texas as well. So we have a strong Tennessee connection, and the Tennessee State Library has a strong Robertson collection there. They've just acquired a new quilt, apparently made by Mrs. Charlotte Robertson. We're looking forward to seeing that this week when Christy's here from Texas to look up her Tennessee roots. But we're having her on campus because we want to talk about her mother and this incredible film, which is titled Shaking It Up, The Life and Times of Liz Carpenter. And not only did Mrs. Carpenter serve in the LBJ administration, she went on to become an incredible and powerful feminist who was working for the Equal Rights Amendment for all women. And she was one of the key organizers in 1977 of the National Women's Convention that was held in Houston, Texas. And she's from that really powerful thread of women who really were leaders and voices for change in our society. So we're looking forward to everybody getting to know who Liz Carpenter was, because she's a role model for us today. And let me just tell you that Nashville PBS will be showing the film Shaking It Up, The Life and Times of Liz Carpenter, starting in May. And for those of you who are members of PBS and you are on PBS Passport, you can access the documentary there very shortly. But right now, just for the next 2 weeks, and 2 weeks only, I understand, through PBS, I think I'm correct-ish about that, you can go into pbs.org and watch Shaking It Up on your own time, on your own screen. It's going to be fully accessible without Passport and without even having to have a television. So we're inviting you to do that now. Please go watch the film, because it's publicly available at no charge to anyone. It's on pbs.org. It's called Shaking It Up, The Life and Times of Liz Carpenter. And you can also see some longer screenings, what's referred to as the director's cut, a little bit in greater detail. This week, in fact, today, Monday, March 17th, St. Patty's Day to you, at 12:30 at the Honors College in room 106 at MTSU, and tomorrow, March 18th, Tuesday the 18th, at 1 o'clock in room 106 of the University Honors College at MTSU. So again, we're having 2 on-campus showings of the director's cut of the documentary. Today, the 17th of March at 12:30, and tomorrow, March 18th at 1 o'clock. And then the big event is on Wednesday. And that's when we would really love for you to come to campus and join us. Again, we're going to host this event, this dialogue, in the Honors College auditorium. And the Honors College is near the Student Union building in East Campus. And it's in room 106 on the first floor. It's the Honors Auditorium. And Ms. Christy Carpenter, along with a Nashville PBS Director of Strategy and Operations, Dr. Sarah Childress, who handles all of Nashville PBS's independent production work, meaning independent films such as the one that we're going to be watching and talking about. She will be doing the moderating. And we're going to have a reception afterwards for people who are interested in the political progress, the writing progress, the voice, and the visibility of women in U.S. society. And this is an illustrious Tennessee heritage woman from Texas who played a huge part in the Lyndon Baines Johnson administration in the 1960s, in the era that we refer to as the Second Reconstruction, also the Great Society. So come be a part of that and join the dialogue with us, and stick around for the reception. You can meet Christy and visit and talk, and we love to hear your perspectives and ask her lots of questions.
So during that discussion on Wednesday, what types of questions, or have you received any questions yet, but what types of questions do you expect?
Well, the story itself covers several pieces. Liz Carpenter's story is a journalism story, women in journalism. It's a political story about women in politics and the shaping of politics and the roles women played at that point in the early to mid to upper 20th century. And then it becomes, and it shifts into an empowerment feminist story. So from Mrs. Liz Carpenter's perspective, there are all those elements. But for us here in Tennessee, it's also a Tennessee heritage story. There's a lot we could talk about there. There's a Texas story and sort of Washington, D.C. life. So a great deal of those elements, I think, will be bases from which people can pose questions. I hope people will speak to Dr. Childress from Nashville PBS and ask her the film questions. But I'm going to be interested in the history questions, of course.
But a lot of history for sure for those who enjoy learning, or for those who have questions regarding history. A lot can be answered at this event.
Yeah, it's really, I'm excited about it, and I think it's a real opportunity. We often talk about unsung heroes. or heroines, people whom we don't know. And to be perfectly honest, the entire thread of women's history, both in the United States and globally, is often people have been previously unsung. It takes historians and moments such as documentaries and biographies to tease out those stories so that we become aware of them. We know what incredible work these people did, and often they were behind the scenes. Too often women are not in the front of our national activities. We remember U.S. history often as a long line of male U.S. presidents. Where were the women? What were the women doing during any of it? We go from war to war, and we often don't look at the social issues that were bubbling back on the home front. These are areas where women shaped U.S. policy and had an enormous role in what was happening in the nation. So Women's History Month is just a time to be able to have those discussions and bring that home to us and get us all a little bit better educated.
And we are already out of time, but if you'd like to learn more, just go to mtsunews.com/ and then type in Shaking Up Liz Carpenter Women's History. All of this going on the MTSU campus. And once more with us today, Dr. Mary Evins. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.